What's up, guys? John Stargarian here, and I want to talk about the main card of UFC Auckland. So I'm going to still do my in-depth breakdowns of fights, but this week, it's not a great card for betting. I only have two plays. They're both on the main card, and they're both small. I'll go over them, but just don't think it's worth to dive into everything this week, and I kind of wanted to try out a main card breakdown, so I'm going to give it to you here. So if you like the video, please drop a like and subscribe. So the first fight for UFC Auckland is Kevin Aguilar against Zubaira Tukhugov. And, it's an interesting fight, and it's one that I looked at, and I kind of looked at both ways, and I think if you bet this fight and you got either at plus 110 or higher, it might be worth your time. Personally, it's just a stay away for me. So, I'll start with Tukhugov. Tukhugov, he's a Dagestani. He trains out of the same camp as Khabib and Islam Makhachev. That's really where the similarities end. He lands 3 takedowns per 15 minutes, but he doesn't really attempt them at a high rate. The most takedowns he's ever attempted in a fight in the UFC are 8. And he doesn't chain takedowns together like the other two. He tends to just shoot once and let it go, or he'll work into the clinch and try to drag you down with a body lock. And so that's a little bit concerning because, while his entries are really good, they're really fast and he's great at getting in, Aguilar actually has really good first-level takedown defense. He defends at 86%, and we saw this against Enrique Barzola, who similarly has good entries, but, doesn't chain takedowns. Him just stuff Barzola over and over again and keep it on the feet. And then there's another problem for Tukhugov is, his top game just really isn't very good. In 12 takedowns in the UFC, he's only landed 16 total ground strikes, and he's only advanced position twice. Those are both very poor rates, and, the problem is, he spends more time focusing on solidifying his time on top than actually doing anything with it. And so the problem with that is that it makes it very easy once the other fighter gets up to lose rounds. And he's actually done a split decision 3 times in a row. His last fight with Rowan Murphy is a perfect example. Round 3 of that fight, he probably had about 3.5 minutes of top time in round 3, but he literally just didn't do anything, didn't throw strikes, nothing. And Murphy outlanded him in significant strikes, 9-2, and took round 3 on, I think, 2 cards, which wasn't surprising. Some people thought it was a robbery. I personally didn't. And so, that's a problem. Hitting takedowns is great, but if you don't do anything with it, you're not really banking rounds, and it leaves an opportunity for the other person to take advantage of it. This issue of winning rounds for Tukhugov is compounded by the fact that he's very low volume. He only throws at 2.2 significant strikes per minute, which is, a really low output. It's really hard to win rounds with that style of fighting. Now, I will say he does have a lot of power, and, that should benefit him here, as we've seen Aguilar rocked before on numerous occasions, and rocked a couple times by Dan Ige last fight. But he's also very reckless and wild with his strikes and is super susceptible to straight strikes, which Aguilar will throw. And on the other side of the coin, like I said, Aguilar, he's a very good first-level takedown defense, but he is a little susceptible to getting rocked. But he is a busy fighter. He averages about 3.8 significant strikes per minute, and we've seen him land as much as 88 significant strikes in a 15-minute fight. And so I generally expect he'll be the busier fighter. The other concern is, though, we've seen Aguilar taken down by the body lock before, and as I mentioned, Tukhugov likes to use the body lock. And while I do think his get-ups are on point, he has a nasty tendency to lay in guard and play guard there, which again, that's not good because the more time you spend on your back, the more of the round you're giving away. And so ultimately, I view this as almost a dead even fight where, the question is going to be, can Aguilar do enough on the feet to make up for the time Tukhugov spends on top? And can Tukhugov either get enough top time to win rounds here without doing much damage, or can Tukhugov hurt him on the feet enough time to win rounds? So I could see it either way. In terms of a pick, I'll pick Kevin Aguilar by unanimous decision. But again, like I said, if you played it over plus 110, that's good line, can't blame you. I just don't see a good enough angle here on either side. The next fight is Magomed Mustafaev against Brad Riddell. And I actually do have a play here. I played 2 units on fight doesn't go to decision at minus 150. And that's actually up to minus 215 now. I think you still could play it. I don't like it as much there. But I have this close to minus 300 to end inside the distance. And I'd initially taped this looking at it as maybe I'd play Riddell at plus money. He's got a really, really decorated kickboxing background, and he looked pretty good in his first fight against Jamie Malarkey. And he's going to land at a higher volume than Mustafaev. You can almost guarantee that over the course of 3 rounds. The problem that I saw with Riddell is he's a little too willing to throw down in exchange. And, against Malarkey, he was absolutely picking him apart en route to dominating that fight. And for whatever reason, I don't remember if it was at the end of the second or the beginning of the 3rd round, but at one point he just decided to get into a wild exchange in the pocket, and he got rocked badly. And, he didn't get finished. He won the fight. But, against a guy like Mustafaev, if he gets clipped in the pocket like that, he's going to sleep. And so I do think Radel is a more technical fighter here. But, that's enough of a concern to kind of steer me away from picking him. And on the other side of the coin, you have Mustafaev, a really dynamic striker. He's actually, I believe, in 13 UFC fights, maybe 14, or 14 fights total. He's never gone to decision once. And, like I said, he's dynamic, he has incredible kicks. He's a little wild with his hands, but has a ton of power. And, he's he's dangerous at all times. So you have two guys who are really sharp strikers. And then you also could add into the fact that, Mustafaev does not have the best gas tank. We see him gas around the 7.5 minute mark almost every time he gets there. And so the way I look at this is, early on in this fight, Mustafaev is going to be very live for a KO. And if Radel gets into an exchange with him, a wild exchange, there's a good chance Mustafaev puts him out. And if it goes into late in the second round or later, I think Mustafaev is probably going to run out of gas, and Riddell is likely going to put it on him and finish. And so that's how I view it. And I think the level of variance will be lower than usual for fight don't go the distance play. Like Mustafaev, we've seen try to grapple before. He's also got the Dagestani background, but he's not very good at it. And Radel, we've seen him have to defend takedowns in the past, and he looks pretty competent, like most of the guys at a city kickboxing do defensively grappling. So I don't think grappling is going to be a big deal. And so consequently, I'd cap this near minus 300, and I think it's very likely to end inside the distance. And so that's my play for 2 units at minus 150. The next fight on the board, we got Rogerio de Lima against Ben Sassoli. And this is, it's an interesting fight. Again, I looked at it thinking I might play Sassoli at plus 130. And because, I can't get there. So Sassoli, people will say he's a massive heavyweight, but that's not, it kind of oversells it. He's short. I think he's only at 5'10", and he only has a 72-inch reach. He's really an overweight heavyweight is what he is. And he's got good boxing. He's got a good jab, a good straight left, a good overhand left. But that's really all he has. And, he doesn't kick much. And his grappling is just terrible. We saw Juan Espino just absolutely ragdoll him on the contenders, or on Tough. And it's just, he just doesn't have many weapons. And to compound that, he's short and he has a short reach, and he's not good at closing the distance. First of all, we saw him fight Greg Hardy, and he basically didn't check a single leg kick the entire fight and just got eaten up. And then on the other side of the coin, we also see the fact that, even though he's a good boxer, he doesn't throw more than 1 or 2 punches at a time, which makes it hard to close the distance against a bigger man. And De Lima is a bigger man here. And so after I taped Sassoli, I thought strongly about playing De Lima at minus 150. But ultimately, I just don't think I can trust him. First of all, De Lima's hands aren't very good. So if this turns into a fight in boxing range, I could see Sassoli putting him out or just winning a boxing match. Second of all, he's got a really poor gas tank. And, obviously that's a big concern. And so, thinking about the fight, though, and how it could play out, I favor De Lima, but I think the line is about right. So, Sassoli, as I mentioned, doesn't check kicks, and De Lima actually has a really solid kicking game. And I could see De Lima just hanging out on the outside and just kicking him to death and winning this fight that way. And I could also see him just grappling him to death. As I mentioned, Sassoli can't grapple, and we've seen De Lima, even though he's not the best grappler either, show a willingness to in the past. But at the same time, as I mentioned, De Lima's got a horrible gas tank, and this is in Auckland, which is in the backyard of Australia from where Sassoli's from. And so I just, I could see this turning into a dirty, low-level heavyweight fight where both guys are gassed out after a round and trying to count on the judges to give me a decision in Sassoli's hometown. I just don't really want to do it. And so, like I said, I think De Lima is likely the value side at minus 150. And he's my pick to win here. I would say De Lima by unanimous decision. But I don't think there's a ton of value on him here. I think the line's about right, right on the dot. And yeah, so that's what to say about that. I'm picking De Lima by a decision. And the next fight we have is Yan Xiaonan against Karolina Kowalkiewicz. And Xiaonan is, I believe she's about minus 260 last time I looked. And Kowalkiewicz is about plus 220. And to me, that line is pretty on point. I've seen a lot of people say they want to pick Xiaonan in this fight, or bet Xiaonan. And, I guess I can see it. I guess how you could cap it higher than minus 260. I don't personally myself, I'll say this. I think she hits harder than Karolina. Her output's a little bit better. And Karolina certainly seems checked out at this point in her career. And so consequently, predicting the fight and how it'll play out, especially after watching Karolina just get eaten up by Alexa Grasso, yeah, I think Xiaonan is the rightful heavy favorite here. She's got more power. She's going to throw just as much, if not more volume than Karolina. And, she's younger and she's on the come up, whereas Karolina, she's talked about wanting to start a family and leave fighting behind. And it seems apparent, she doesn't do a lot of what used to make her good, stuff like clinching up and throwing clinch knees and elbows. We saw her get bodied in the clinch by Michal Waterson. And, Waterson was a much smaller girl, is a much smaller woman. And I played Karolina in that fight thinking, that's perfect for her. Waterson's going to come in there and she's just going to be eating elbows and knees and not be able to get that head and arm throw. But she got it over and over and held her down. And I played Karolina in her next fight against Alexa Grasso, again thinking, people were kind of overrating what had happened in the Waterson fight, and Grasso just picked her apart. And so she's not trustworthy at this point in her career. She's clearly, she doesn't seem like her head's in it anymore, and she's getting older. And so I can see, and so like I said, I think the line's on point here. The thing is, the reason I personally wouldn't play Yan Xiaonan is they're both of them are high output fighters. So like even in the Grasso fight, Grasso landed, I think, 140 significant strikes, but Karolina still landed 95. And that's a pretty high rate of striking for 15 minutes. And so that's concerning because, we saw Xiaonan fade a little bit down the stretch against Angela Hill. And in a fight like this, you never really know what's going to happen. It's not totally inconceivable to think Xiaonan's volume could come down a little bit and Karolina's could go up, and they could both land, in the 100 to 120 significant strike range. And at that point, depending who, I'd expect Xiaonan to land the harder strikes and win that fight. I'd still favor her in a close striking fight, but that's close enough that you really want to take a risk with the judges there. And again, you never know. Like, I don't personally expect Karolina to turn back the clock. I think she's probably finished. But you never really know, what if she does come out and start clinching up and throwing knees and elbows and look to get the fight down. I don't think it's especially likely, but it can't be ruled out either. And so consequently, I can't play Xiaonan with this kind of juice on her. And I can't play Karolina, who I think is pretty much washed at this point. And so my pick's Xiaonan by decision, and yeah, that's that. And our next fight is the co-main event, and it's Jim Crute against Lord Michal Ola Sajak. And I actually play on Ola Sajak here at 1.5 units at minus 135. And I thought this was likely going to be a no play, or I might play Crute. People have been so high on Ola Sajak that I figured this line would go over minus 200 and actually give some value on Crute here. And initially, that was the direction it seemed to be trending after the line came out. But it's come all the way back down now, and Ola Sajak's now minus 135, which seems too low to me. So let me be clear. The reason I thought about potentially playing Crute if it went high enough is not because I think Jim Crute is some superstar. I actually don't think have a very high opinion of Crute. But Ola Sajak, I don't have a super high opinion of either. I am a fan of the tools he has, but he slowed down precipitously in the third round of his fight with Roundtree, and then in his last fight with OSP, he also slowed down badly in round 2 before he got finished on the mat, and that's what concerns me. So Crute, Crute's obviously his best skill is his jiu-jitsu, but I don't think he's a great wrestler, and I think while they're fresh, he probably won't be able to get down Ola Sajak. Even if he can, I don't think he can keep him there, because I think Ola Sajak's wrestling is okay. But And Crute as a striker, I don't think anything of it all. He throws a high volume, but he's really reckless. And Ola Sajak's just a much better striker than him. But we saw this with OSP. Like I said, Ola Sajak was lighting him up on the feet for a round, and then just gassed. And then once the fight hit the mat, he had no defense. You could just see he was out of energy. And so that was my concern, and why I thought I might play Crute. It's we don't know whether or not Ola Sajak's gas tank issues were because he tried to finish OSP, or if that's a thing and he's just got a bad gas tank. And it was something that if I got Crute at plus 170, plus 180, I would have been willing to find out. But now when it's on the other side and it's all the way down to minus 135, which I think is about a 50% chance to win for Ola Sajak, I just look at these two guys. It's I have to play Ola Sajak here. And the reason is, like I said, I think Ola Sajak's got better tools on the feet for sure. He's much better hands. He's got, we saw him sit there and eat some bombs from Khalil Roundtree, so I'm not worried about his durability at all, to be honest with you. His durability is just fine, and Roundtree couldn't get him out of there. I don't think Crute can. And, he throws at strong volume, and he has, really good power. He's got a bunch of finishes on his record. I think 12 of his 14 wins are by finish. And so, I think while he's got energy, he's going to dominate this fight. The question is going to be, and knowing that, I would give him Ola Sajak almost an 80-85% chance to win round 1. And on top of that, I think there's a strong chance he could finish in round 1, and the line says that as well. But even if he doesn't, if I know going into this that he's likely going to bank the first round, it means he only has to win one of the next 2 rounds. And we don't know. Maybe he'll gas out again, and Crute will take him down and finish him, or just take him down and ride him out on the ground for 2 rounds and win the fight by decision. But like I said, I think it's a big unknown because he gassed out trying to finish OSP. And if he's a little bit more measured here, there's no reason he can't just do the same thing and just take another round off Crute. And so consequently, between the chances of him finishing, which I think are, I wouldn't say super high, but I think they're high enough, like I think the 30% range, 30 to 35%. Between that and, the fact that I know even if he doesn't finish early, he's almost certainly going to win the first round. I think that's got to be worth him being, almost like a 60, 63, 64% favorite here. And so I think there's value at minus 135. And so I've played Ola Sajak for 1.5 units. I also think there's some value on his decision line, because while I do think he's got a good chance to finish Kroot early, like I said, he'll likely win the first round regardless, and I think there's a fine chance he wins one of the next two. And his decision line's plus 560 right now, which is way too high. And so I think you could play that too, but I'm playing him for 1.5 units at minus 135. And so my pick's going to be Ola Sajak by first round knockout. And then on to our main event, Dan Hooker, Paul Felder. And this is another one, I looked into playing and I couldn't really find a great angle on it. And so when I looked into it, I was really strongly thinking about playing Hooker. And my thinking is, Hooker's only an inch taller. Felder's actually a big lightweight, just like Hooker, who's gigantic lightweight. But Hooker's got a 5-inch reach advantage. He throws with a lot more volume than Felder. I think he lands 4.7 significant strikes per minute to about Felder's 3.5. He does a really good job controlling distance too, and you saw that last fight against Ali Akinta, who probably technically is on a similar level to Hooker, but was just getting absolutely eaten alive trying to close distance. And so I thought, and he's also from Auckland, New Zealand. He trains out of City Kickboxing, and so I'm like, he's at home, he's got the volume edge, he's probably got the power edge. Have to favor him. Minus 145 doesn't seem like that big a price to pay. And you look into it some more. And there's a couple things. First of all, the Barboza fight, that is so concerning. Hooker got absolutely eaten alive in that fight. And it's not just that he got eaten alive. It's that, number one, he made no adjustments whatsoever. Number two, he just couldn't check kicks at all. And Barboza ate up his inside lead leg, his right leg. And he had no power coming back at Barboza after that, after about the first, 7 minutes of the fight. And while I do think Hooker is likely better than Felder overall, both from technically and from power standpoint, two things Felder's really good at. First of all, pushing forward. So like I mentioned the Iaquinta fight, Iaquinta got lit up because he wasn't willing to walk through damage to get inside of Hooker's range. Now Hooker's got a 5-inch reach because he's a massive lightweight. But Felder, on the other hand, Felder is going to come forward no matter what. He's willing to take damage to get inside. And so I don't think he's going to end up getting stuck like Iaquinta on the outside, getting teed off on. The second thing is Felder's got a really strong kicking game. He's not Edson Barboza, but he will throw a lot of kicks. And you actually saw this, it was 2 fights ago against James Vick, who's also similar, like really tall, lanky, lightweight, like tall and rangy like Hooker is. And you saw Felder absolutely destroy his lead leg with kicks, to the point that Vick was talking in his corner about how much it was bothering him, and he clearly wouldn't commit on his punches. And while I do think Hooker's likely tougher than Vick, toughness doesn't really matter if you can't get any power behind what you're throwing. And so I think, like I said, Felder's not Barboza, but I think Felder could eat up that leg, and he's going to throw kicks. Like if this plays out for 5 rounds, I could see Felder landing 40 to 50 kicks, and that could be more than enough given what we've seen from Hooker to see his mobility severely hampered here. And so it makes it extremely hard for me to play him as a favorite at minus 145, even being at home in Auckland. And so I'm staying away from Hooker. And from Felder's perspective, I was tempted to play him. And truthfully, if it was in the States, I would probably play him. But it's in Auckland, and I think close rounds are likely going to go to Hooker here. And so I just don't think I can play Felder at plus 125. I think I need around plus 170 to make this worthwhile, or make a play on Felder here. And in terms of how I think it'll play out, like I said, I think Hooker is likely a little bit better. He's rangy. He's going to probably throw more volume. I don't think Felder's ever landed over 65 significant strikes in a fight, whereas we've seen Hooker, even the Barboza fight where he was absolutely destroyed, he landed 88 significant strikes. Hooker's he's going to have more power coming back at him. And, even when Felder can work inside and work into the clinch and use those elbows, Hooker's actually got a really strong clinch game himself. He's got pretty vicious knees and pretty strong elbows of his own. And so, I think Hooker likely is better all around here, and so I think he's likely to win. But like I said, I just, if Felder starts, we've never seen Hooker in a 5-round fight before. We haven't seen Felder in it either. But seeing how unwilling Hooker is to check leg kicks, I just can't back him here, knowing that Felder's the kind of guy who will go after the legs. And so so that's where I'm coming down on it. Hooker's the better fighter, but Felder has a pretty clear path to victory, especially if Hooker's leg goes around round 3. Felder could easily win a war of attrition or just finish him via attrition. And so it's a no play for me. I'm going to pick Hooker here to win by unanimous decision, but like I said, it's not a super confident pick, and it wouldn't shock me if Felder wins. So that's my right down on this card. I might do a prelim breakdown as well tomorrow. We'll see how I'm feeling, and but I have no plays on it at the moment, and I don't think I'm likely to make any. But if you guys want to see one, drop a line in the comments, and maybe I'll put one together. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed, and good luck this weekend. Thanks. Bye.